So, hello and welcome.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
For our new viewers, the purpose of these interviews is to share with you what resiliency is at an individual level. As we each go through this journey of life, resiliency helps us cope with disaster and adversity, and over time, slowly come back and thrive once again. And I wanted to share with Donna and have her share with you what does resiliency mean to her, because she has an exceptional story to tell that is heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and at the same time, so many lessons learned.
Yes.
So welcome, Donna, to Resiliency for Life and Michael Ballard.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you
And
here.
I'm happy to share my story.
Well, thank you, because you have some things underway that over time will come back and share again. There's a book in her heart and her head, and it's coming out.
Well, it's written. It's just in editing.
Oh, I didn't know it was fully written now. I'm
is.
out of touch. Am I supposed to admit that?
Of course, why not? We all have faults.
My list is really long. Nothing illegal or immoral, just really long. So, could you share a little bit for the viewers about background?
Yes, I grew up in a small northern Ontario city, Sault Ste. Marie. And my children, although I did bring them to Toronto for a short period of time, decided that they wanted to return home to live with their father. A familiar community, smaller and less busy. All of our families, both of our families lived there, so they wanted to go home, and they did. So I was out of touch with the everyday raising of my children for quite some time. My daughter, who is my middle child, she came off and on to live with me. She was troubled from a very early age and couldn't decide what she wanted to be or who she wanted to be. Gave us a lot of trouble during her, I'd say from about the age of 10 onwards, particularly right going through puberty and into young adulthood. But what I didn't pick up on was that there were some issues with her personality that should have been addressed.
Okay. Wow, so big. But you didn't know it at the time?
No, I didn't. I did take her for psychological testing and, to our medical doctors and things like that, thinking that there was something more than what they were talking about. But they blamed it all on puberty. And, just changing hormones and things like that. And I saw a little bit more, but wasn't experienced in the field.
Right.
So I gave in to their opinions.
Yes, well, key word wasn't experienced in the field, and that's one of the reasons why we do these videos, because we're not licensed experts,
No.
but we've lived it in ways and intensely that others haven't.
Yes, and that's why I'm sharing this story. I think that lived experience is far better than book experience. It can teach so much more, and that's why studies are done. They want to hear from the people who've gone through it, the people that have lived it and experienced it, because we know firsthand.
Oh, absolutely. So that sets the stage. 3 children.
I do.
The daughter was by 10 starting to show signs of being unique and distinctive.
Yes.
Unique and distinctive is my code word for exceptional. Exceptionally brilliant, exceptionally talented, exceptionally troubled.
And Jacqueline was 2 of those. She was exceptionally troubled and exceptionally brilliant.
Which makes it very tough because, as one expert said, and as well as several parents, when somebody's very brilliant, they're very cagey. One parent said their child could think around corners before the parent or the experts even knew there was a corner.
Yes.
Ouch. Hard to keep them safe.
Yes, and that describes Jack to a T. She learned very, very young how to make you believe that black was white. And she would convince you, you would be sure that black was white.
Oh boy, yes, okay. So at 10, she's challenged and troubled, and you as the mother intuit this, take her to experts, but they don't pick up on it, they blame it on puberty.
Well, and I don't blame them for not picking up on it, because in their presence, she could perform. That I always said that if Jack had chosen to be an actress, she would have been brilliant at it, and that she just had that natural gift. She just used it in the wrong way.
And it's not moral weakness to be an addict. It's not a character flaw, but it is an issue that strikes deep into the hearts of individuals and families.
And I don't believe that I know of a single family that isn't touched by addiction of one form or another, whether it be gambling, eating, sleeping, sex, drugs. Jacqueline just happened to choose drugs. It wasn't alcohol or anything like that. She wanted drugs, and she wanted the ones that would quiet her mind. She wanted to be numbed, to get rid of those voices.
And that's a very familiar story.
Yes.
I remember doing a little coaching to a 30-year-old whose doctor told her she had the joints of an 80-year-old. She exercised feverishly, is the only words I can say. And again, not a licensed expert, but she had problems being in a room for a business meeting with only men, or a man. And that was her job. She was a regional manager. And one day I went to shake her hand and she jumped back like I had one of those silly joy buzzers from the old days. And she said, "I'm sorry, I trust you here, but I don't trust anybody in here." And I thought, you dear soul, what happened to you? And she exercised her pain away, she thought. But at 30, she got told she could never exercise again. So she came to me devastated because she said, "It's how I stay safe. I burn off the energy." And I said, "Well, if you don't want to share it with me, I understand, but you need to reflect on and get somebody you can safely talk to without judgment about why." And it's not for me to guess, although I can guess what the issues were, and she might not even know what they were yet, but I can't imagine wearing your body out by 30 and having the body of a 70 or 80-year-old because you exercise 4 times a day on a work day and more on days off.
And that's another form of addiction that is harmful to you.
Oh, yeah, because
Everything
she was
in excess.
underweight.
Yeah.
She was underweight, yes, anything in excess. Yes, so she goes past 10, and then things start to get bigger, I'm assuming.
They did, and she became out of control. And again, we're just basing this on what the doctors are telling us, and they're telling us that she just wants to be in control of her own life. At the age of 15, Jack got pregnant and had our first grandchild, and she seemed to be taking that responsibility. And we thought, oh, finally, we're going to have a change in this girl. She's going to show us that she can be mature and handle responsibility and things like that. Unfortunately, it fell apart for us. About the age of, I guess my granddaughter would have been about 1. Everything started to fall apart. And Jack got mixed up in the wrong crowd and using drugs. We didn't know about it at the time. And became very involved with organized crime. And that led her down the path that she took.
Ouch. Because she got used up then.
She was involved, or got involved through them with selling drugs, taking more dangerous drugs, cutting and cooking the drugs, attempted murder. Yeah, she caused a little bit of heartache.
A little, I'd say a lot, but okay.
So her father really took it to heart. He really did. Of course, we were separated at this point. And actually, I think we were divorced at this point. And she used both of us to play one against the other to get, the typical story. We knew what was going on. But again, we didn't think that it was anything abnormal in that. And we didn't know the depth of the trouble that she was in, or the types of people that she was allowing into her life. She ran out to BC, and her father went and got her. She went out there with a known gang member, and he went out, picked her up, and brought her back pregnant. And that child was put up for adoption. After that, she seemed, again, to straighten out. She had 2 more children with a different gentleman, and it was approximate, I think she was about 25, and she really started showing signs of being heavily into drugs. And it was at the birth of her last child. and I was visiting, and I noticed that her behavior was completely different than what it had ever been before. She was very despondent. If you question her, she was completely agitated, and I became afraid of her in that state. Like, she was violent. So I began investigating, and from the background, and keeping an eye on her. And it wasn't long before I realized how bad the situation was, and I got Children's Aid involved and had them remove my grandchildren from her care. That was one of the hardest things that I have ever had to do.
I bet.
Is to separate, for the children's good, but knowing that it was going to destroy my daughter. And it did. And she went completely underground. And the only time I would hear about anything that she was up to was when she'd be arrested. When that happened, I learned how much the police department can play in an addict's life. They actually, in some cases, enable the addict to continue. They use them for information. They pay them for the information, which in turn they just run out and buy more drugs. And that's what was happening with Jack. She would get off of everything that she did by turning over information and getting the money. I learned that Jack also supported her addiction through prostitution, through theft, a lot of different things that were not the way that she was raised. And we tried at different times to bring her into our home and change the way things were going, show her a different way of life, and it just never sat well with her. Again, we didn't realize that we were dealing with two diseases. I began to look at addiction as dirt, and at her as being dirt or
Yes.
dirty. I didn't want drugs in my house. I didn't want prostitution going on around me. All these things, and I had to tell her, if you're staying here, you can't do these things. I have money. You can have my money if you need to spend it. But of course, you can't have it for drugs.
Right.
Anyway, Jack.
So on the resiliency model, we'd say that's setting boundaries and expectations.
That's right. And I didn't learn the easy way. I went the hard way. I didn't set my boundaries. I thought that doing the best for my daughter would be supporting her.
Right.
And I think a lot of parents go down that road. I think that we feel guilty for what they're going through. We feel that it's our fault a lot of the times. And I did go there for a very short period of time, and then I shook myself. It's like, she was raised properly. I have done everything that a parent can do to support their children in their upbringing, but something else is wrong, and I need to learn what that something else is.
Big turning point.
Yeah. And I had that aha moment. Unfortunately, Jack had again disappeared, and I literally had to go through every agency that was available to me and leave messages. If Jack happens to show up and wants to talk to me, here is my number. Please make sure that she gets this message. And by the grace of God, there was an angel out there that met up with Jacqueline that had read my note. And she picked it up and handed it to Jacqueline, and she said, "Somebody cares."
Oof.
Yeah. Somebody cares. When Jack was on the street, sleeping on the street, soaking wet, filthy dirty, and strung out from not getting a fix, somebody handed her my note saying someone cares. And that was the turning point. It wasn't me giving her money, giving her drugs, driving her here, driving her there. It was me saying, no matter what, I love you.
Yes.
You can be as sick can be, and I will always be there, always. I will not support your habits. I will stand true to my morals, my values.
Yes. Yeah, but there's those boundaries again because it's important to have them. You
But-
have to stay safe.
But my love has no boundary. You can be anything that you want to be, and I will not stop loving you. That turned JC right around. And I've called her several different names here. Her name was Jacqueline. It was spelt very difficultly, and we nicknamed her JC. And when I write, because just to separate myself from the emotion of my daughter, I write saying her name is Jack, because Jack to me is a character,
Right.
not my daughter. I can write more
Yes.
efficiently that way.
I hear you. Yeah, so you're still telling the true story, but it helps you be the writer,
Yes.
not the parent.
Exactly.
Yes. Tough.
Yeah.
So big, and this took place over a few years.
It did.
And so this was really exhausting for you, I'm sure.
It was. It was hard to keep work because I was constantly needing to take leaves to go find her and to make her well again and things like that. My career suffered, but I learned more in those years than I ever did in school or in taking courses or anything like that. I grew up emotionally and mentally through those years.
It really must have stretched your perspective
Oh, absolutely.
and deepened and it just went deep again. Oh, that's your phone. Seconds to cool off. It just means a little more editing, you know.
That's okay.
Hey, I got a 27-inch screen to edit on now. My eyes aren't falling out of my head.
Good.
Well, I got the little computer for portability, much less weight, but editing, not fun. The icons are so tiny that even with my
Yes.
glasses on, you have to expand the screen, shrink the screen. It's very time consuming, so this is just great. So yes, so you stretched, you had more depth of perspective, and you got better insights into what her issues were. And then with this acceptance,
Well, it also opened her heart to share with me and to teach me what it's like to be an addict and to be on the street, what it's like to be on drugs, and the thrill, not the thrill, the euphoria that she felt being high. It was the only time in her whole life that she didn't hear the voices in her head.
yes, the voices.
Yes.
Addiction, mental health.
And it could, she said it could be anything as simple as a song that gets in your mind and keeps replaying, but she could never stop it. There were voices telling her, that she was bad, she was negative, she was hateful, hurtful. That the things that she had done wrong, she could never get out of her head. They kept playing over and playing over. Never anything that she did well or good for somebody. Those things never stayed. It was always the negative. She understood the difference, but couldn't get her head around it.
Well, yeah, because it's one thing to intellectualize it and know it, but if it won't come out of here and
Exactly.
be gone, then you're stuck.
And that's just it. She didn't have empathy or
Okay, so we talked about empathy and not being able to understand that. So that's big.
It is. And it was confusing for her. She was very capable of acting it out, but not actually feeling it.
So I want to stop you there. Acting it out, but not actually feeling it. So she knew she was supposed to,
Of course.
but she didn't have that capability.
That's right.
So nowadays we'd say that's a wiring issue.
It
It's
is.
not a moral character flaw. It's just that some of us are born that way without that capacity.
Yeah. It actually has a name, in the psychological journals and that. And Jacqueline could have and probably should have been diagnosed with this and wasn't. And it would have given us so much more to go on.
I know, without mentioning names, a person now in their late 20s, and for a host of reasons, mom and dad split after the child was a couple years old, and after a host of reasons, when he was 13, he was returned to the father like, that's it, up to here, I'm done. And the mother was at her wit's end.
Well, that took place between Jack's father and myself. We both struggled with her personality. not understanding why she was the way that she was. Her sociopathic characters were very evident, but we didn't know what the name of it was. Had we been given that as a tool to work with?
And part of what you do that I like is that you help people understand a framework. And like when you can be a tour guide for others into this land to help with kids and awareness, then it's not a cure, but then there's understanding about what treatment options are, or why it's okay but not nice to feel helpless and hopeless, and the fact that despite their best efforts, experts miss these things. So I can think of somebody who had their child at 3 years old to see pediatricians and change family physicians because they said, there's something different about this child. I want to keep him safe and I want to do my best. And all the experts said, oh, they're just growing pains.
But they won't even diagnose a child under the age of 15. At the age of 15, Jacqueline was already out of our care. She had a child of her own.
Yeah. I do volunteer work with grandparents who take over the care of their grandchild because the mother and or the father are a danger to the child, or they're deceased, or they're in prison, or they've got addiction issues so out of control it's not safe for the child. And so I've heard the stories, but yours is a very articulate one.
It is.
And that's why I want you to share it, because people need to know.
Well, I think I brought you up to the point where I found her. She had been handed a piece of paper with my message on it that I wanted her to reach me. And as soon as she did, I knew somehow that this was going to be life-changing. It wasn't until she gave me that phone call that I realized that Jacqueline had gone so far that it was probably going to take her life. It was about a month later that she became so ill that she was hospitalized, and I flew out to BC to be with her and to see what the doctors had to say. And what I encountered was eye-opening. She was treated like an addict. She was treated like a street person. She was left in a hospital bed without any care whatsoever, no intravenous, nothing, and just laying there. And
no one to advocate
and this wasn't
for her.
even a room. This was a ward that was makeshift in the back of the hospital that only housed people that were hard to deal with. And that I was blown away. They took care of her, of course, as far as doing testing and diagnosing what was wrong with her, and it was learned that she had septic pneumonia, septic pleural pneumonia, and there was, the chance that the fluid had built up around her heart. They didn't know whether she had echocarditis or, no, I can't remember the name of the other, cardiitis.
Okay. Right.
I can't say it properly. And so she went through all those tests. Once I got on scene, she was treated like a human being again.
Somebody to advocate.
Absolutely. And I still remember they had a group of people that acted as the DART team, Drug and Alcohol Addiction Resource Team. And they were in charge of prescribing her methadone. And I happened to miss when the person came into the room to speak with Jacqueline, and I went out to the nurse's table and I said to them, I'd like to speak with him. And he was sitting with his back turned to me, and when the nurse went over to say, oh, Jack's mother wants to talk to you, he put his arms down like this, and his eyes rolled and his head rolled, and I thought, you poor guy, like, what a job to be doing when you really don't want to be doing it. Like, I can see, all of your frustration, because I've lived the life. I've been there, and yes, it's frustrating as hell. It really is. I ended up becoming good friends with this person because I did understand where he was coming from.
Sure.
And I spoke with different hospital members and advised them on treating the situation a little bit differently. These people are human beings with a disease. It's not a character flaw.
No, it's not a character
disease.
flaw.
No, it's
I,
not.
I can't stress that enough, that it's not a character flaw to be an addict.
And I can see where they came from, because I was there. I was the one rolling my eyes. I was the one throwing my hands up in desperation. I was burnt out with Jacqueline's.
I can't imagine what it's like as a parent.
And just with all the antics and the embarrassment of having my daughter's name pasted in the newspaper in Sault Ste. Marie week after week after week. She'd stolen this, she'd been caught with this drug, she had done this to somebody else. It was embarrassing. I was happy to be living in Toronto and out of the picture. So I brought that knowledge to them, and I showed them from the point of view of a parent who wanted to take over in the care of their daughter. It was about 3 weeks into Jacqueline's hospital stay that I learned that she was going to lose her life. It was just a matter of which infection was going to take her. And it could have taken 6 months, it could have taken a year, but she would die. We got her well enough to put her into rehab, and she went and didn't fit in. And about 3 days after I left and came back to Toronto, she went back to the street and started doing her drugs again. And I lost contact. On January 9th of 2012, I got the telephone call that no parent should ever get.
No.
And when I noticed that it was the hospital calling, I was so convinced they were going to tell me that she was dead and that she had overdosed. I didn't want to pick up the call. I wanted it to go to voicemail. And at the last minute, I answered. And I've never been so afraid to hear a voice on the other end of the phone. The nurse said, the first thing she said to me was, "I have your daughter Jack with me. I'm sitting right beside her." And I think I must have just breathed out so heavily. She said, "It's okay, she's not dead." She said, "But she's seriously ill. Jacqueline has contracted flesh-eating disease, and we're taking her into surgery. We believe the doctors are going to have to take both of her legs up to the groin. She is not well. We don't know if she's going to make it through surgery, and we can't wait for you to get here.
No.
Will you talk to her?"
Wow.
And through a lot of tears, the only thing I could say was, "I love you.
Big words.
I love you. I'm there with you. Even though I'm here, I'm there with you."
Yep.
And then it was just a matter of grabbing my purse and getting on the first plane.
Wow.
I didn't have shampoo, toothbrush, nothing.
No.
Not even a change of
Nothing
underwear.
matters then.
And I got there, and she was in a drug-induced coma. They didn't take her legs. They took all the flesh in her legs. And I was there through all of the dressing changes and everything. They allowed me to stay right beside her. I can tell you that I could fit my fist in one of the gouges that they took out of her thigh and that. And I could easily fit my fist, and it's a big fist.
It's a flesh-eating disease is dangerous.
Yes. And it was caused by the levamisole that they use to cut cocaine and heroin with. And that it had stayed in her system, it didn't break down, and it had festered from the veins and had caused all this decay. Jacqueline told me when she came out of everything that she knew she was going to die. She believed she had about 6 months left. And I asked her, "What do you want to do with the last 6 months of your life? If you only have 6 months left, what would you like to do?" She said, "I'd like to teach you."
Wow.
"I would like you to speak for me."
Okay. And you are.
And I am. Now, Jacqueline died on August 21st, 2012. And I put on a celebration of the life that she lived because nobody was stronger than her. Nobody I know of has lived on the streets, has been accused of murder, not once but twice, has stolen, has gone up against the family, all the people that love her. There was so much that she did that I can only learn from. And that's why I don't suffer my daughter's death. I don't, because she gave me such a gift of all of the things and experiences that she went through. She has taught me what it's like to be a sociopath. She has taught me what it's like to be an addict. She's shown me what it's like to be the mother of these two individuals, and has given me the privilege of sharing my experiences with others who are going through it, to show them that there's a different way of viewing such a tragic thing. And I'm privileged to live that daily. Do I cry for my daughter? Absolutely, I do. I feel her loss, but I feel the loss of her body and being able to touch it and kiss her and hold her. I don't miss her because she's right here. She's right beside me. You know, when I'm writing, it's like, okay, Jack, what do you want to write about today? You know, what experience should we add into this chapter? What should the message be that I'm trying to put across here? And I hear her loud and clear. And I'm not saying I'm psychic or that I'm bringing up the dead or anything like that, but Jack had a way of teaching me those last 6 months that I'm still learning. I'm still hearing the message that she tried to portray.
And as you hear it and reflect, you learn more.
I do, absolutely.
Good.
And things that have come up in my life, I've been able to look at and say, oh, how would Jack look at this? You know, in the message that she left me, how would she view this? You know, what is the message in what's happening to me today? Whether it be, you know, something simple, and I'll relay a story. The last time you and I met, I was leaving the parking lot and a gentleman backed into me.
Ouch.
And I got out of the car and it's like, how deaf are you and how blind are you? I started backing out first, and I beat my horn when I noticed that you were backing out, and you still hit me. And he got angry, and he started yelling at me, oh no, I did that, you didn't do it, and you know. And we got into a bit of a scuffle, and I said, let me get my insurance. And as I turned around to get my things out of the glove compartment, it was like Jack slapped me in the head. And I'm going, okay, fine, what is the message in somebody banging into my brand new car? And she said, you have the opportunity to show him how not to be angry at something happening.
Because anger is a choice.
Absolutely. And I must have looked like a sociopath myself because I turned around and I was smiling at this gentleman and I said, you have to forgive me. I'm so sorry for getting upset about this. I said, I just lost my daughter a few months ago, and loud and clear I'm hearing that this is just a car. It's a piece of tin. It's a machine. It's not a human being. You didn't die. You didn't get hurt. Neither did he. So treat it like an unexpected meeting.
It's a small incident that's inconvenient and annoying. And well said. I
said it to him and I looked at him and I said, so it's very nice to meet you. And he hugged me. And I thought, you know what? I hope I have an accident every day.
Not that the Insurance Bureau of Canada wants to hear that, though. I think you just lost your opportunity to be a spokesperson for the Insurance Bureau.
So what a gift.
Yes.
What a gift.
Absolutely.
To look at life in a different way. Every time I look at the scratch on my bumper now, it's like, wow, how nice.
It's like that thought about the man who dies, and at the autopsy they said, oh, his heart was full of holes. No, how did he live this long? And one of his relatives said, oh, that's because in life, he said, the more your heart was full of holes and wounds, the more like Swiss cheese you were, but it means you were old and experienced and had gained love and respect and wisdom.
Yes.
Because it was a pure heart and no holes. It means you took no risks. You had no adventures. You had no pain.
Yeah, and I've taken risks.
Yes, absolutely. So this has been a very powerful journey.
Yes, it has.
A lot of insights gained.
Yes.
Not always easily, but coming through it and coming, I don't want to say out of it, because I think you're going to be in this journey.
I'll be in it probably for the rest of my life. Actually, I do see it.
And I don't see it as a journey that's turning you into a shipwreck. It's a journey of empowerment, of sharing. And so again, choice.
Yeah.
Choice.
Choice.
So I think we should end it here for now.
I just want to add one more thing about my
Please.
writing. I want to intrigue the reader to learn what I've learned through Jack.
Okay.
Jack's story is written exactly how she lived it. It will tell you the beatings that she took, the accusation of murder, how I viewed it, how she viewed it, how it happened. It will take you to the thefts. It will take you to her childhood, how I finally had her diagnosed as being a sociopath, and how I learned to deal with it. Read it. You'll find it interesting. Maybe you'll come out the other end like I did.
There will be links below the video for you to find.
Yes. www.jacksvoice.com, spelled JACSVOICE.
Perfect. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing. Amazing. So, lots of wisdom there. I look forward to reading your book
Thanks.
and sharing your journey with Jack. Thanks, Jack.
Yes, thank you, because she's the one who really wrote it.